Hey guys, Driver here. Today I'm going to talk about how Team 1 in the North American IEM Katowice minor kept their enemies on their toes by using lurks and utility to dominate on their T sides. So if you want to see, let's dive right into it. Okay, so I actually just finished recording the entire video. But I just wanted to come in here and say that I accidentally messed up and sort of had the desktop audio a little bit loud. I think it's okay for this video. I think you can still hear me around some of the shooting that maybe is a little bit too loud. But just a warning, if you're a headphone user, maybe turn your volume down. You might not be able to hear me for some sections, but I think it's all okay. I'll fix it for next video, and that's it. So watch the video and enjoy. Okay, so here's our first clip, which is going to be from Inferno against E United. And E United didn't look very good this tournament, to be honest, but that doesn't mean that Team 1 played poorly. Team 1 came from an actual last-minute spot. They weren't even supposed to make it to the minor, except that the Old Guys Club had to pull out. So this goes to show that maybe they don't have the individual talent that some of the other Brazilian teams have, but they do still have a lot of team play, and I think this comes from Bit. So we're going to go through this, and this is going to be our very first clip. The first two rounds weren't that important. They played kind of standard, but this is the very first time that we see some lurking happen, so I want to go over that in this clip. So we're going to start the clip here, and Nico M is going to be the player that we're going to watch because he's actually going to be the one that is going to lurk in this example. And I'm playing this one on stretched, so if it looks off, then that's why. That's my normal resolution, but he starts by going up the apps here, just normal, and we'll just open up the rest of the map. So as you can see, Bit goes and gets that banana control, which is moving up. And I'm just going to lower the volume real quick. But as you can see, so TRK, and Nico M covers TRK as he moves up to the apps here, and as you can see, Bit already has full banana control. So this is really important because it's setting a precedent for the rest of the rounds, which is really important because we're going to come back to that, and that's why these lurks are so effective. But instead, for now, Nico M is going to be lurking outside of apps. This is very standard. This is nothing special. This would not be something that I would credit a team for. But what's really important is how we're watching Nico M. He's in alt mid here, and he decides to hold for just a little bit as his teammates go for a pick at a B. He doesn't overextend right now because he knows that his teammates are exposed on the other side of the map, so he's just being an anchor here. But slowly he begins to creep in. This is perfect timing here because he knows that someone is going to have to rotate, which would make a person inside of the apps unsupported, and so he goes ahead and gets this information for his team, which is really important. If he had not moved up here, he might have been moving up right now, just about as his team is there. And this would have given away the fact that his team is already rotating, and he wouldn't have been able to bait out that utility for his team. So this is just one of the very few examples, the first one that we're going to use. Okay, so here we are back on Inferno again, in the same game. And we're just 2 rounds ahead, so they got an easy win on the next round against a full buy. There wasn't any real lurk in that round, so I didn't want to cover that one. But here we go into a round where they're actually playing an anti-force buy or an anti-eco. Several players on the enemy team have armor, but many of them don't have helmets. So they do actually have an SMG in this case. And normally IDK would be the player that's going to go all the way up banana, but because their offer is trying to farm cash with the SMG, he decides to move up. So they go ahead and they set up here. And early on, they play a very slow and controlled, methodical style, but do take banana control as they feel necessary. So that's really important once again. It's going to set up perfectly for the lurk that IDK is going to use here, which actually is a really smart lurk and is much better, but he clears out as much as he can. He thinks he sees someone coffins, which I think he does, yeah. But they decide we don't want to take that fight anymore. There was a deagle that they were peeking. The nades, they can't push through them, so they decide to fall back. And in this case, I think Bit, as the in-game leader, calls for the team to group up towards A. He wants to try to hit A while those smokes are down. He thinks maybe the rest are maybe on A, they don't have utility, and so they go towards A. And in this case, there's all sorts of action happening over there on the A site. But IDK plays really smartly here to hold the perfect angle. He knows that they just threw a smoke, and instead of going off and helping his teammates, he holds that smoke for just a little bit longer to make sure that they can't push it. He then fakes a rotate, but meanwhile has been holding it the entire time. And likelihood of someone pushing through that smoke as he runs away is very uncommon because they just took 2 picks away at A. So he instead comes back to A. He held that information for a really long time, and now they know that there's only one player on B, because there has to be a player that rotated A since they made so much presence there. So this lurk pays off big time because they don't have to clear anything. They just walk right onto the site here. They know there's just going to be one player here. They instant headshot through the wall, and just solidifies the round perfectly for them. So another great lurk. This one wasn't as clean as some of the rest of them, but it still goes to show how effectively they're using it. Okay, so we're back on round 7. We skipped another round. Round 6, it was an anti-eco. No guns were bought on the CT side, so it's unimportant. And so now we're back onto a full buy. We actually see the CTs bring out an op for the first time on Cooper, and so we're going to see how they deal with that, because now they know the presence of a peeking op could destroy their setup. A default can be really frightening on Inferno if you have someone that's going to peek with ops all the time, like the CTs are going to be constantly impressive. So in order to make sure that their style keeps running, they actually do a double nade, and Nico actually gets the kill with the nade there. And so as we're watching this unfold, they get that early pick and they decide to hold. They don't have any lurking going on here. Instead, they're actually all just grouped up in the T-spawn, making sure that they don't lose any players, making sure that they could trade anything. And this is what I really wanted to show, was this flash by IDK. It's a great way for them to regain banana control, as they didn't want to fight through the utility that the CTs threw. And that was actually a really important decision, because when you're lurking as effectively as they are, sometimes you'll lose that lurk, and sometimes that will mean that you lose a player with a lot of nades. And so in this case, they actually said, we want to conserve as many nades as possible. We want to make sure that we don't lose anything that we don't have to. And so they decided, we're just going to throw a couple of those nades. And as you can see on the right side of the screen here, there's so many Molotovs left, there's so many flashes, there's every player except for IDK has a smoke. And so that's just going to be so much more powerful coming into the late round, especially when you're already a man up, and you know that maybe they're going to leave like an opper on a site to try to hold it down by itself. Smokes and mollies can instantly, cut him off, and they can certainly push him out of position. So we're definitely going to see that as they go back. And the reason that this affects lurking is, like I said, the nades can be devastating if you lose a lurker, but the other thing is that when you start using these nades effectively and multiple players are using them, or you're just holding onto them, you can set different precedent with the nades, which goes along with lurks. So they just threw that nade onto banana, and the CTs aren't going to re-aggress even though they have 3 players there, because they're scared of the aggression with the nades that they threw earlier in the round. And obviously now it's far later in the round, and they're worried about much different things. So they are able to group up towards A here, and even now you can see that Maluk is checking banana, being very wary of the flank, and Cooper actually is peeking over here, which is a very smart play, but they're so scared. There's 30 seconds left in the round, and they're just now going for this peek. So this goes to show that now the rest of the team over here on A can just throw some easy smokes and easily get out of the tower. And the rest of the team, they do actually experience some problems with Maluk having to solo push the site, but eventually they get there and they win the round because of it. So this is why how they use the lurking in a team play example, not just a solo lurk like you sometimes see in your matchmaking or your pugs or even lower level teams, right? So just another example. Okay, so here we are, just the next round. It's round 8 now, and they're going to show again why they're using those nades so effectively, and they're even going to show how they shut down what could be a counter to some of their lurks, which would be aggression in certain areas of the map that they're pushing one by one. And so this round, United's on a force buy, and so they take things pretty slowly. They only use 2 Molotovs right off the bat, which isn't too bad. But Nico decides to tap down, he's spraying through, and they instantly get a kill in mid, but, that's kind of given to them. What's really impressive is how they take down, as you can see, the players are spread apart right now. You have Moose, who's in the pit, and you have Dazzle, who's in the apartments. And Dazzle could really catch off one of their lurkers if their lurkers were to push by themselves. Very effectively. As you can see, Nico is playing together with his teammate. He catches Dazzle pushing, and so that's just now they know that that's 2 picks on the A site, and that they can easily group up and hit either site. And even then, Bit actually goes all the way to banana and finds another kill. So he's holding this lurk, and I want to actually back up for a moment and show that clip just a little bit more, if it'll let me. So I'll be right back. Okay, so here we are back in the same round. Last time we were watching Nico. Now we're going to watch Bit instead, and he's actually over here on banana. And so the interesting thing about this is that I was showing how they were basically counteracting any type of aggression towards their potential flank in the last clip with Nico actually just getting that kill on Dazzle. But what we can see here is that Bit is actually lurking for his team in banana. And a lot of times you'll see IDK here, but in this round Bit just happens to be the one here. And he's push through that smoke. He's playing very close, which is potentially dangerous. I would like to see him play a little bit farther back, but he's a little more susceptible to a flash, and he actually perfectly gets the kill there, and that shuts down, I mean, it may just seem like one kill, but this will prohibit them from actually pushing on multiple other rounds. And Inferno is such a key map for rotates that Bit does such a good job to shut that kill down. He doesn't let them get a free frag there, and he even is playing really patient here. He's trusting his teammates. He knows that there's 4 of them, and he instantly gets Dapper as well. There's some anti-eco kills. They're not hard kills to get, but it is smart of him to go ahead and set the precedent that these CTs cannot be pushing through smokes. They can't be pushing banana because he doesn't want them to interrupt his executes on other rounds. So just another important clip there. And actually we're going to go right into the next round, to round 9. And this clip is going to show how they use nades very effectively at banana. They already used the nade stack earlier in the game against a full buy, and now there's 2 ops up. So as you can see, they just used some nades at banana. They used a molly. IDK is all the way down to just having just one smoke actually. So they completely, section off the CTs with those nades. But those nades were almost unnecessary because the CTs were already so scared. So the nades just completely, scare off the CTs completely. There's no way that the CTs are going to be pushing that. They're way too scared. They have no idea what the Ts are doing, and so they get to set up a full execute here onto the A site. And this execute is brilliant. I mean, it cuts off every single point, but sometimes you see teams struggle to be able to pull off these executes because they don't have someone watching the flank, and they need all these nades. But in this round, they had that space because of the flanks that they already set up. So you can see they have to take some aim duels, which aren't as great, but they even end up clutching out this round. And so we can just watch Nico here for the rest of this round. But even though they didn't get some of the entries perfectly, they threw some great flashes. Bit actually had a couple flashes at Arch there that were really good, and United did their best to hold on to the site, but it was just impossible in the end because just now Dapper has gotten here with the op. And so FNS is trying to move up porch, but they still have a couple of nades that they're trying to fight. And Nico just gets an instant headshot there. Toys with Dapper a little bit. They end up going down in this round due to trying to chase the round from Dapper, but they have so much money at this point from winning so many consecutive rounds that it doesn't even matter. So this is just another example of that lurk for them. Okay, so we're back just in the next round, round 10. I wanted to split those up though. I need to clear my thoughts for a second. And so on this one, we see an interesting buy come out because Dapper actually did manage to save the op from the last round. And so they instead decide to just go straight up with a contact play. Basically towards A, you can see Maluk throws a molly there, still trying to they're still relying on that precedent that they set in a couple rounds earlier. And so there's no pressure towards banana, even though this is a full force buy round. So this could be a round where they would want to push up on the United, but instead they're so scared at B that they decide to play kind of tunneled, and they play really far back on A as well. And so they actually just go for a full contact play here towards A. You can see that TRK comes out, is clearing the site with Bit, and actually what was really interesting there was even in the way that they take sites, they push the CTs into Bit's crosshair, which was just in boiler. Playing around, watching the flank. You can see right now he's just holding the flank. They're very conscious of the flank, and that helps them to make sure that they don't get styled on with any highlight plays. They just are very considerate of the flank, and they're always, precise in the way that they hit the site. obviously FNS gets some exit kills, you know, not a big deal. Maluk is just staying here with the bomb, but they even move in pairs when they're trying to get these cleanup frags. They're trying to find those guns, and they attempt to go for it, but they're not gonna. It's not gonna be a big deal here. Dapper. Because they're just relying on that precedent of those lurks that they set before. So this round is going to be the last round that we look at. Obviously, it's the last round actually on their T half. And this one doesn't have a crazy lurk in it like some of the others, but we get to see the reward of them working off these lurks. And so it's really interesting because you get to see they just go straight up for a B play. Obviously, the CTs have a somewhat broken economy going into it with FNS on an but they do have 2 ops and they still have 2 rifles, so it's really looking like they can still win this round. And Maluk takes some heavy damage in the beginning, so all the signs are pointing towards potentially, you know, a good round for United. But Bit once again takes quick banana control. They're not scared. They've had so many lurks here, so many game sets, and the CTs are just not going to be aggressive whatsoever. They immediately fall back to B. They're not playing with 3 players there this round, and so they immediately push them back with the flashes, and they immediately just go straight into a B hit. IDK hiding, and then he almost just getting shot by his teammates, but he just takes that kill, and he even goes all the way into CT, and they don't even expect this. But as you can see right now, I'm just going to pause as he gets the kill right there on Cooper. So as you can see right now, if we open up the map, you can see that Dapper and Dazzle, one of them should have definitely pushed down mid, because if there's someone in CT spawn, that's going to be very hard to fight through. And so if anything, it should have been a fast rotate into CT, and they should have, the 2 CTs should have tried to pinch on the guy in CT. But unfortunately, they took too long, and IDK gets Cooper. And so now they're so scared of the potential watching of a flank or a flank in mid itself that they both just double up in CT here. And this round just becomes painful to watch as Dazzle does get a trade on IDK after his 3K. I don't blame IDK for going for another peek there. And we can just watch it as they both die to Nico. So yet another case of where they use this, they use the precedent of those lurks in the other rounds to help them easily just roll over on B in this round. And so it was really impressive. I really questioned why they didn't expect the CT push there, but anyway, once again, so scared to flank, it won them another round. Okay, so here we are on Overpass actually. Team 1 managed to beat United pretty handedly on that Inferno game, and so they got to play Team Envy for a slot in the minor qualifier, raising many eyebrows because obviously they weren't even supposed to make it to the minor, but they got in, and here they are. This map was super close. Both opponents have a map up right now, and so this is the elimination map, and they're looking to win this one. And unfortunately they don't, but there's still some good stuff that they show because they actually get all the way to 14-16 in this match. So here we're just gonna start off by watching the 4th round, and on this round nothing crazy happens. They're actually playing pretty passive. They're being aware that this is actually Team Envy's first real buy, with Nifty still on the SMG. But what's really impressive is that they're pretty decisive. They decide, let's go B, and they're still being aware of the flank there. Obviously they were in connector, holding a very tight angle on the ladder there, which you seem to see many pros doing these days. But actually, they go into this B hit, and Bit has incredible faith in his players. He throws the nades that he knows he should. They have these well-drilled executes, and then he holds for the connector flank briefly, and then slowly begins to play more passively. His team has the site, they're clearing it out, and he trusts them completely, and instead he decides to hold this flank, which, unlike Inferno, you can't hold crazy flanks all the way across the other side of the map, because you may never see a player on Overpass, right? But in this case, he actually just decides to hold in T-spawn, and he even heard the player, so he knows there's a player there. He's just messing with him right now. He's not going to go for a kill. He's just making sure that that player stays put. And obviously, he got unlucky there with someone coming out of the short tunnel, but he just gets the easy kill on Cutler. Okay, so here we go. We're back on the same map against Envy, of course, and we're on round 11. And in this round, they actually go for a crazy stack, which I thought I'd show just for extra content. it's not really relevant to the point of this discussion, but it is really cool to see what they do after it. So I thought I'd go ahead and just show this. Obviously, very common stack for some pro teams to do. They actually wait very patiently for this one, but Maluk gets his spot there. He holds for a good bit here, and he eventually does pick off Cutler, I believe, in heaven. So this was just a fun little there. But who we actually want to watch for this one is we want to watch Bit here, and Bit is gonna stay passive. This very much resembles the fourth round, where he's playing farther back. He's throwing his nade set, and he continually checks this flank. He really wants to make sure that no T's are getting aggressive. But as you can see, Nifty is still very scared. I mean, he's holding the playground all the way up here. He's not pushing up. He's not doing anything of that sort. And what's really interesting about this one is how they completely fake the CTs out by throwing a full B execute, and then they just immediately run back A. And what happens here is that most of the T's run back through connector. They just go the shortest possible way back to A. But Bit has the presence of mind that I should stay where I am, and he doesn't bait his teammates. He just goes out perfectly when he should. So they throw even more utility. TRK gets picked off at B, but they decide to go right back up to A, and he comes out with his teammates to trade that kill. Now that may seem like it was a very simple kill, something that almost any team would do, but some teams would just have sent all the players towards B, or some teams would have had Bit try to take the player by himself. And in either of those cases, someone of Nifty's caliber, even though it didn't seem like he was doing potentially that well in this game, could have potentially gotten lucky and taken out Bit. But in this case, he plays the safe card. He knows that maybe one of his teammates might get picked, but he knows that he is a potentially crucial part to play in this match and in this round specifically. And so he waits for his teammates to come right up, and he takes out Nifty just fine. So just another little flank. It's a little bit harder to see how these flanks are all the way across the map, or the lurk, as you might call it on T side, are all the way across the map, because they aren't on overpass. It's a very large map, so the T's are going to mostly stick together and focus on a certain side. But in this case, they're transitioning, and he manages to catch a really good pick lurking. So just thought I would show that one. Okay, so we're back here on overpass, and in this clip we see that IDK does something that may not seem like the smartest play, but it does help them. It doesn't help them win this round, but it helps them win the next round, and they are so far up already that this is definitely a good T side. They don't end up winning the game or the match in this particular example, but they certainly had a really good T side, and that definitely wasn't their problem. So as you can see here, IDK goes towards Monster. He's going towards the way that he should be playing mostly everything. He, is just watching Monster. That smoke, I think, is actually from the CTs. It's meant to hit the bridge or where the train tracks, and then it's meant to go back into Monster, but they kind of fluff the smoke, and so he's pushing up here in Monster, actually. And as he takes this fight, he does whiff a little bit, and Drone gets a little lucky with the headshot, but and it may seem like that was kind of dumb, but actually what he does is he just makes sure that in reality the CTs are being honest, and he even goes a little farther as to kind of scare them a little bit. Drone takes a lot of damage, and they certainly aren't going to push Monster after a guy just comes barreling in, and so this makes sure that his team is really safe going into the rest of it, because so here we are back just in the next round, and that round they actually didn't win. Obviously, like I said, IDK ended up dying early, and JDM got a nice kill with a Molotov, even though he's whiffing with the op, and so it just didn't go their favor. But they take a timeout here, so I'll skip through that very quickly. And as we're watching this, I just want to talk about how in this round, there isn't some crazy, lurk that happens on their part. What actually happens instead that's really interesting is they use that precedent, and IDK doesn't go towards B here. He actually goes towards connector, and so even though they've been so aggressive at B and they've managed to control it, he doesn't have to go there and do the same thing again. Instead, he watches in connector. He actually makes a bit of a miss jump there, but his movement, like, as you can tell, these players are pretty inexperienced, and they don't necessarily have the greatest aim, and they're not top players, but he just is here with his team this round because he doesn't have to worry about them pushing B. He knows that he put enough pressure there on the last couple rounds that he doesn't need to go there and camp out again in short. But he does do something really smart here, which is he just goes back and he just jump spots this spot. And this is really interesting because he actually sees Nifty. What's more important is actually that Nifty sees him. And so Nifty, even though he has an off and probably wouldn't have pushed on the flank, Drone might have, but now Drone is worried because he knows that IDK just came and spotted, and there could be a player killed for all they know. So really interesting play there. I actually do think that they win this round. I think that unfortunately JDM does hit some shots and they still manage to lose the round this game. But we can watch out the rest of this. What really was interesting to me about this game was, and all of Team 1's games, was that they just really impressed me with their level of teamwork. I thought that they were just going to be kind of a mixed team. I thought that they wouldn't be that great, but Bit really impressed me. If this was his doing or if it was a coach's doing, I'm not sure. But he really impressed me with the way that they use these lurks in their team play. And in this case, it really paid off because they just managed to find so many crucial picks. But on top of that, they didn't just try to get the picks and then run away, or get the picks and then go to a different site. They actually used those picks and they pushed effectively as a team to win the round. And so, even though they get knocked out in this map, they end up losing the next half pretty handedly. I thought it was really interesting how they managed to use these lurks, they used these peaks, they used all the things, especially on Inferno, but even some here on Overpass, to effectively work as a team and really impress me. And I think they impressed a lot of the community because some of the casters and analysts themselves were pretty impressed with how far they made it. And I think that they showed a level of teamwork that I didn't necessarily see, especially in teams like Team Envy, who haven't been together for very long, or especially E United. So that was all for me. I just wanted to talk about some lurking, show some things that could be applicable to your team. They could also just be applicable in a pug, or a couple of matchmaking if you just want to play with a couple of friends. It shows how you can, if you communicate with your teammates effectively, it can always help you win the round. So that's it from me. I'll see you guys in the next video.